There's a multi-trillion-dollar industry out there that is absolutely booming, setting new records basically every single year. But here's the catch, the big paradox. It's failing the very community it was built to serve. So how can an industry be so incredibly successful, yet leave so many people behind? Let's get into it.
Picture this. On one side, you've got executives in these gleaming towers, popping champagne, celebrating another record year. And on the other, you have someone, let's call her Fatima, facing yet another closed door. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a tale of two realities, and it's right at the heart of our story today. This is a massive fundamental disconnect that affects billions of lives.
And this is the number behind that record year. The global Islamic finance industry is worth a staggering $3.88 trillion. That's trillion with a T. It's one of the fastest growing financial sectors in the entire world, jumping by almost 15% in just 1 year. So yeah, success is undeniable.
Okay, so if the industry is crushing it, growing like crazy, where's the problem? Well, the answer reveals a pretty shocking disconnect that I'm willing to bet you might not expect.
Here it is. Globally, about 76% of people have access to formal banking. But for Muslims, that number absolutely plummets to just 14%. 14! The very community this entire industry is named for is overwhelmingly on the outside looking in. I mean, we're not talking about a small gap here. This is a chasm.
So, this brings us to the core of it all, what we're calling the 3.88 trillion paradox. An industry that totally mastered growth, but somehow really struggles with inclusion. Let's take a closer look at the numbers behind this whole situation.
First off, the sheer scale here is just mind-boggling. We're talking about a potential user base of 1.9 billion people. And yet, get this, in the Middle East and North Africa, the very birthplace of Islamic finance, the financial inclusion rate is the lowest in the world. And in some of these countries, almost 1 in 10 people actively avoids banks because of their religious beliefs. So the demand is clearly there, but the bridge to get to these services, it just hasn't been built.
So the big question is why? Why does this great disconnect exist? Let's dig into the main reasons behind this paradox, and we'll start with where all that money is actually living.
Well, the first clue is a massive concentration of wealth. Over half, 55% of all global Islamic finance assets are held in just 2 countries, Saudi Arabia and Iran. Meanwhile, Indonesia, which is home to the world's largest Muslim population, holds only 2% of those assets. The money simply isn't where most of the people are.
The second reason, though, isn't about logistics. It's about something way more fundamental, trust. Traditional Islamic social finance groups like Zakat and Waqf, they should be a natural bridge here, but public skepticism has really grown, mostly because of a lack of transparency in how the funds are collected and actually used. So the very institutions that were designed to be pillars of trust are now struggling to earn it.
And reason number 3, technology. You'd think it would be the great equalizer, right? And I mean, look at the promise. The number of Islamic fintech providers has absolutely exploded. But here's the reality. For rural populations, people without reliable internet or digital skills, these amazing new platforms are just as out of reach as a brick-and-mortar bank branch hundreds of miles away. In this case, technology has accidentally created whole new walls.
Our final reason is probably the most surprising of all, a massive knowledge gap. It turns out that even in Muslim-majority countries, financial literacy about these products is incredibly low. A lot of it comes down to really complex jargon and just plain bad marketing, which leads people to think it's only for the super rich or that you need deep religious training to use it. The simple truth is, you can't use what you don't understand.
Okay, so we've laid out a pretty big challenge. But here's the good news. This puzzle is not unsolvable. In fact, there are some incredible success stories out there that are lighting the way forward and offering real, tangible solutions.
So what's actually working? Well, let's take a look at Bangladesh. This is a country that has achieved something truly remarkable in Islamic microfinance, reaching over 100,000 clients. So what was their big secret? I'll tell you this much. It wasn't a fancy new app or some complex financial product. They achieved repayment rates over 95%. 95%! So how did they do it? By integrating directly with the community and religious structures that were already there. Instead of trying to force some outside model on people, they built trust from within, working with the social networks that people already knew and relied on. It's such a powerful lesson in just meeting people where they are. Now, Malaysia offers another fantastic model.
They've built this really smart, structured three-tier system. At the top, you have the big commercial banks. Then, there are specialized institutions for specific needs. And at the grassroots level, you have community cooperatives. This whole setup creates multiple pathways to get included, making sure there's an option for everyone, no matter what they need or where they live.
All right, so these beacons of hope give us a really clear blueprint. In our final section, let's pull all these lessons together and map out a concrete path forward for closing this massive inclusion gap once and for all.
So the path forward really needs a three-pronged approach. First, we've got to leverage and modernize those traditional tools like zakat to rebuild that broken trust. Second, technology has to be truly human-centric. It needs to be designed for the people who are digitally excluded, not just for the tech-savvy folks in big cities. And third, and this is crucial, banks, fintechs, and social institutions have to start working together, not in their own separate silos.
And why does solving this matter so much? Well, the impact is just enormous. Research shows that just a 1% increase in Islamic financial inclusion can raise a country's GDP per capita by over 0.5%. It significantly reduces poverty and, maybe most importantly, it makes entire communities more resilient when economic shocks hit. We're talking about building stronger, more stable economies from the ground up.
And when we look ahead, the stakes couldn't be higher. By the year 2060, the global Muslim population is projected to hit 3 billion people. So this isn't just a social mission. It represents one of the largest underserved markets in the entire world. The industry that figures this out won't just be doing good, it will unlock absolutely incredible growth.
You know, in the end, solving the $3.88 trillion paradox goes way beyond just serving one community. It's really about showing the world how to build financial systems that are founded on resilience, on transparency, and on social justice. And in a world that is desperately searching for more equitable ways of doing things, the solution here might just hold the answers that we're all looking for.